Now, the former Director General, Abuja Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Chijioke Ikechukwu, joins me from our Abuja studios. Good to have you join us, Chijioke. Thank you very much for your time. Now, let's start with the non-performing loan portfolio of Nigeria's banking sector dropped to 1.1 trillion naira from 2.24 trillion naira. What do you make of this report? So many say it's a good turn.
Yeah, it's a good news to hear from the financial sector. The reason could not be far-fetched. The fact that CBN has increased their corporate governance policy and their supervision and examination has been more robust now, and they are getting stricter all the time, every time with commercial banks or deposit money banks. You know, so with all those measures put in place and some other ones coming from some other regulatory bodies like EFCC and others, you see a good number of people who have been owing banks and thought nobody could touch them are beginning to pay back. Otherwise, they will just go and face the law with EFCC. And so they are avoiding that area, and that's why you are seeing the repayments taking place. And the other reason could just be the fact that maybe some payments owed some of these petroleum dealers, people in oil and gas have been paid, maybe by government, and so with that, their outstanding credit facilities could just be going down. So these are the major reasons why you could see the non-performing loans going down.
Okay.
It's a good development.
Now, we also see, according to the reports, that Nigerian banking sector has also recorded 800.2 million in terms of volume of transaction, which has also in value hit 42.76 trillion naira in the third quarter of this year. And the Nigerian Interbank settlement system instant payment transactions dominated the volume of transactions recorded. But what are your expectations now when we are talking about building infrastructure to improve our payment system and have stronger financial inclusion in the country?
Yeah. Nigeria obviously has one of the biggest, one of the largest capabilities in the financial system payment, probably digital technology payment, and we could see that playing out. We have experienced some other countries where the kind of capabilities we have, you cannot experience them in these countries. You know, so I think the country is doing well, and but we need to be a little cautious, because as we are increasing our capabilities in ICT, we are also having a good number of people perfecting their acts of defrauding others using the system. You know, their IT experts are also there who are ready to hack into anybody's account and get people's monies out of the place. We also see situations where people who are not supposed to have access to point-of-sale terminals are also having them and using them to kidnap people on the road and forcing them to use that to withdraw monies from their account. And it's unfortunate that these things happen and there is no follow-up investigation to see who owns such accounts, where was the money withdrawn from, and all that. So we need to check the security capacity of this digital technology or fintech that we're deploying everywhere. But I think the competition within the industry is making it possible that we're having a huge transactions online and real time.
Okay.
It's encouraging, and yes.
Okay, let's talk about the credit to the private sector now. The report also put the total value of credit allocated by the banks at 16.25 trillion naira as at the end of the third quarter of the year. But we all know that access to credit is still a major challenge, especially for SMEs. How do we sustainably open the window of opportunities? We now see the loan to deposit ratio at 65%. That's a good step in the right direction as well. What other steps do you expect for 2020?
You already said that availability is still not as we expect it to be. The cost of funding is a major consideration. It's a major problem we need to deal with. Until the country has a cost of fund that is less than 10%, whether to MSMEs or to the manufacturing sector or any other sector for that matter, we are still going to be having difficulties in accessing these funds. Availability of funds is also a major issue because liquidity situation is a problem with most of the banks, and they don't have the capacity to lend for such a long time. They don't have the capacity to lend large. So you see that liquidity is a major problem that has to be solved. And when we solve that and solve the cost of funds, then it is possible that we're going to be having a good number of people, investors and MSMEs having access to these particular funds. That's the way to go.
And the CBN governor has also reiterated severally that Nigerian banks are healthy. Do you concur with this position? To various extents, yes, Nigerian banks are healthy. You know, the control system of CBN makes it possible for them to identify which bank that is healthy and which is not. And when they discover a bank that is not healthy, they will start putting pressure, or start, of course, CBN is the banker's bank, and so they will start giving credit facilities. And if they give that over a period of time and discover that the bank is not picking up, of course, they will look for investors to take over that bank. And so to the extent that we find ourselves today, yes, they are healthy, but I can tell you the capacity of the banks we have today in Nigeria cannot be compared to those we have in some of the African countries, even like South Africa and Egypt and co. So we need to talk about capacity, and we don't have that heavy capacity yet. Okay. Now, as we're wrapping up conversations, let's quickly touch on the reports, the warnings that we are having from the World Bank. Now, it says Nigeria may become home to a quarter of the world's destitute people, and it says until we have government work on removing fuel subsidies, increase central banks lending to targeted sectors, and we necessarily do not have our crude oil prices fall to $50 a barrel, we would be seeing a recession in line. What do you make of this report?
Yeah, you know, we have always expressed our fear that our strength lies on a measure that we don't have control over, which is the volatility of the oil price in the world market. And each time our price of oil rises, we celebrate. Yet we don't have control over it. You know, so we need to continue to make sure that our GDP growth continues, our economy continues to grow, because today, with a population growth of about 2.6% and GDP growth for this particular quarter, first quarter of this year, of about 2.1, you see that population growth is increasing far more than the GDP growth. As far as that is concerned, and as far as that is happening, we're going to continue having poverty, and it's going to spread all over the place. So what we need to do is just to ensure that our economy grows. We need to stimulate this economy. We need to float the economy so that monies will just be flowing from one end to another. That way, we can actually grow the economy to be able to even meet the population growth, so that we can reduce the propensity of unemployment and propensity of poverty growing in the country.
And hopefully we'll have our Economic Advisory Council also be able to steer us to the path of recovery and economic growth. Thank you very much for your time, Ekechukwu Chijioke, the former Abuja Chamber of Commerce and Industry Director General. Now it's time to take a quick break. When we come back after the break,